Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Bloomberg Daybreak Accurate podcast, available every morning on Apple, Spotify or wherever you listen. It's Tuesday, the 30th of July. Here in London, I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up today, Rachel Reeves warns of more difficult decisions as she blames the Tories for a £22 billion budget black hole.
Standard Chartered expands its multi-billion-dollar share buyback as results beat estimates.
Plus, setting up a showdown, Donald Trump says he will probably debate Kamala Harris before US voters go to the polls.
Let's start with a roundup of our top stories.
The UK's Chancellor Rachel Reeves has announced major spending cuts and new taxes as she warned she'd inherited a fiscal black hole. She accused the previous government of spending £22 billion it didn't have.
I'm not talking about costs for future years that they signed up to but did not include. I'm not talking about the state of public services in the future, like the crisis in our prisons, which they have left for us to fix. I'm talking about the money that they were already spending this year and had no ability to pay for, which they hid from the country. They had exhausted the reserve and they knew that, but nobody else did.
The Chancellor scrapped road and rail projects and some support for pensioners to help fill the budget shortfall. In all, Rachel Reeves announced £5.5 billion of savings, leaving a budget shortfall of £16.4 billion, which includes spending on public sector pay rises of between 5 and 6%.
Rachel Reeves has also hinted at tax rises in the budget, which she set for the end of October. Charlie Bean, a former deputy governor at the Bank of England, says that they now seem inevitable.
I think there pretty much has to be the sort of big lie of the election campaign. Or maybe it's better to call it conspiracy of silence. Neither party was really honest about the underlying pressures on the public finances in the medium term.
Sir Charlie Bean there, who was joined by other experts who said that the announcement pointed to a painful budget in the autumn. The Chancellor doubled down on her commitment not to raise VAT, national insurance, income and corporation tax, but has not ruled out other levies like capital gains tax increases.
Standard Chartered is expanding its share buyback programme with another $1.5 billion announced today. It's part of an overall plan to return $5 billion to shareholders by 2026. The bank reported second quarter pre-tax profit of $1.83 billion, beating analysts' estimates of $1.6 billion. Standard Chartered also upgraded its guidance for income growth this year, which it now expects to be above 7%. Shares in Hong Kong at the bank have risen after the results.
Chinese-made electric vehicles are dominating the European market. Brands from the country are hitting record registrations with new regulations that could threaten the sector. Bloomberg's Tiwa Adebayo has more.
More than 23,000 of Europe's registered battery electric vehicles came from China last month, according to Dataforce figures, a record amount. The surge comes as Chinese manufacturers race against EU tariffs, which took effect earlier this month. Cars registered before July 5th could be sold on without added duties. Chinese-made imports from Western manufacturers, including Volvo and Tesla, are also subject to the changes. But tensions between Beijing and Brussels risk devolving into a trade war. Chinese brands, including state-owned SAIC and BYD, captured 11% of the European electric car market in June, and car makers are expanding in Europe to blunt EU restrictions. In London, Tiwa Adebayo, Bloomberg Radio.
A Tesla market analyst has reportedly narrowly avoided a crash whilst testing the company's full self-driving feature. According to William Stein from Truist Securities, he was forced to intervene when the car accelerated through an intersection in the New York suburbs towards another vehicle. Bloomberg Technologies' Ed Ludlow says the episode casts doubt on the automaker's ambitions.
What William Stein at Truist is doing is he's taking a specific comment Elon Musk made on the first quarter and second quarter earnings calls, which is investors should judge Tesla's ability to solve for autonomy, active tense, by going out and experiencing themselves. And so what he's saying in his note is, my experience, based on this now obsolete version of the software, is it's not ready to solve autonomy. It hasn't done.
That's Bloomberg Technologies' Ed Ludlow. Tesla didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on Steen's report, but CEO Elon Musk posted to X that the car maker is deploying an updated version of full self-driving. The incident comes as Musk seeks to emphasise the company's broader artificial intelligence efforts as sales of its electric vehicles have slowed.
Donald Trump says that he expects to eventually debate Vice President Kamala Harris. He had declined to commit to a scheduled debate, which had been booked in when President Biden was still the presumptive nominee. But speaking to Laura Ingraham on Fox News, Trump had this to say.
The answer is yes, I'll probably end up debating. I think actually the debate should take place before the votes start being cast. You know, I had a very good second debate with Biden. I really beat him badly. The problem was 30-40% of the votes were already cast. If you're going to have a debate, you got to do it, I think, before the votes are cast. I think it's very important that you do that. So the answer is yes, but I can also make a case for not doing it.
Donald Trump speaking there to Fox News and referring to the 2020 election and early postal voting, which begins in some states in September. Meanwhile, Democrats are poised to virtually nominate Harris and her yet-to-be-named running mate by the 7th of August. One possible VP pick, though, has dropped out. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper says that he's withdrawing from consideration as this, quote, just wasn't the right time.
Venezuela's opposition says they can prove electoral fraud as protests erupted in the nation's capital. Thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets of Caracas to protest what they say is Maduro's fraudulent win. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says that they show they won more than double the incumbent Nicolas Maduro's votes.
Es un milagro. Es un milagro. Pero hoy
Today, I want to tell all Venezuelans in the country and abroad, to all the Democrats of the world, we now have proof of the truth of what happened yesterday in Venezuela.
The administration has accused Machado of being involved in a plot to alter voting results. International pressure has been ramping up on Maduro to provide transparency over the election tally. In a moment, we'll bring you more on Rachel Reeves' speech on the UK's public finances, plus the latest from the US presidential race. But first, thinking about sleep, as we often do at this time of the morning, and where Olympic athletes are sleeping. Much has been made, of course, about the cardboard beds in the Olympic Village in Paris. But the question of who's chosen to stay in the village and who's left. And this is something our colleague Gillian Tan has been writing about.
Yeah, absolutely. Rafa Nadal says that to live the full experience, you need to be in the village. And a number of other tennis players have decided to stay too. But quite a few have chosen sleep, maybe above the cardboard boxes. Although I've seen pictures of the cardboard boxes and actually they're pretty nice. They're
I've seen the video of Tom Daley jumping on his. It's not like it's flimsy, to be fair, but there's a lot of talk about who's got mattress toppers, who's got extra pillows, who can make them more comfortable. Some of the athletes have decided to leave and go and sleep in a hotel, claiming they weren't getting enough sleep in the Olympic Village. But interesting to get a peek behind the curtain with our colleague Gillian Tan of what the Olympic athletes are living through, I suppose, while in Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Let's focus then on the challenges that were laid bare by the Chancellor Rachel Reeves in her audit of public spending. How big are the problems and how will the new Labour government solve them? We were watching Rachel Reeves yesterday. Our UK politics reporter James Walcott with us this morning. So let's start with the Chancellor then. We knew that she was going to blame the previous government for their mishandling of the finances. What did she sort of say about what skeletons are actually in the closet?
It was a real shock, and I don't say that lightly, Caroline. We knew there was a big fiscal hole, and this was all about sort of future spending. The government had basically penciled in £20 billion of civil service cuts, and we weren't sure where they would come. Now, the big revelation that generally has taken aback analysts and pundits is a lot of money had already been overspent. We're talking $6.4 billion on asylum claims, about $3 billion on new policy commitments, and overspends on a range of government projects. And that was money that had not been disclosed, not to the OBR, not to the Labour Party, and has genuinely taken aback. I mean, I go to the IFS, Institute for Fiscal Studies, and the OBR, which are the independent budget watchdogs. Now, the IFS were one of the biggest cheerleaders to say there was a conspiracy of silence over the election debate. After this statement, where they had been having a go at Reeves before it, saying this is all sort of known, they went, Rachel Reeves is within her rights to feel somewhat aggrieved. And it was always clear that spending plans were incompatible with, but the more cash would be required. But they were like, the funding pressures do genuinely appear to be greater than could be discerned from the outside. So in this blame game that we were expecting, there is a genuine introduction of big overspends. The OBR called it one of the largest budget overspends outside of the post-pandemic period.
So what has the Chancellor said that she's going to do about this?
I mean, let's start with the cuts. They are looking at nearly $3 billion in cuts for each civil servant department. That's some of the forecast stuff looking ahead. They've cut winter fuel payments. That will get a lot of domestic headlines because it will affect pensioners and wealthy pensioners quite specifically. You're also looking at £800 million in transport projects just scrapped overnight. And that's just the beginning. This is all going to add up to about $5.5 billion saved in the budget for this year, but leaving roughly $16.5 billion shortfall for sort of the rest of the government period. And then on taxes, a lot of stuff in the manifesto is coming into play quite quickly. You're looking at a pledge to charge 20% VAT on private schools. Non-dom taxes will start in April 2025. A windfall tax on the province's energy and gas companies will rise 3% from November. And a warning of, quote, further difficult decisions to come in the autumn budget. It really was quite a blockbuster speech yesterday.
Yes, some people said, Reeves was right to feel quite cross. Does the reality, though, of the numbers then further damage the Conservative Party? They're looking for a new leader. And what does it do to them as they assess their 14 years in power?
I mean, for the record, they are quibbling these numbers.
Yes.
Former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has written to Simon Case, who's the head of the Civil Service, to say, excuse me, just a few weeks ago, the Civil Service signed off on a lot of these numbers and didn't bring these questions up. And so they are going to challenge a lot of this stuff. It will be interesting to see how that plays out. It will also be interesting to see how the public takes this stuff. A lot of what Rachel Reeves announced yesterday was not in their manifesto. Now, again, many think tanks have pointed out that there were bits they could have foreseen, say the public sector increases like on wages, those up to 5 to 6%. That is something that someone could have taken an educated guess about. Some of these overspends, it would be very hard to have known about. So I will wait to see where the public lands on this issue in terms of polling, frankly. But for the Conservative Party, with 6 leadership candidates to go, it'll be interesting to see how they digest it too.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could also argue they've already been punished by voters, the ballot box in the election too. But as you say, James, we'll wait to see what the continued reaction to that is. James Wilcock, our UK politics reporter, thank you very much.
Well, now to US politics and whether Donald Trump and Kamala Harris will hold a head-to-head debate before November's election. This as the field for Harris's running mates narrows, the North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper dropping out. Our breaking news managing editor Derek Buyback is with us for more. Good morning, Derek. Donald Trump had been due to debate Joe Biden in September, but there's been a question mark really about that since Biden dropped out. What has Trump been saying about a potential debate with Vice President Kamala Harris?
Well, you're right. And I think the one thing that we do know for sure is that Donald Trump will not be debating Joe Biden in September. Everything else is a bit up in the air, right? There had been a thought from the Harris camp, all right, well, we'll just slot right into that and that'll be fine. And then we've been getting over the last, let's say, days, indications from the Trump camp that wasn't going to be quite such smooth sailing. They originally said that they couldn't finalize anything until Harris was the nominee. That process is almost locked up now. There had been some suggestions from the Trump camp that they might want a different venue. They might want different moderators, maybe a different network entirely, Fox News instead of ABC, things like that. And so you're sort of looking at a kind of permission structure to not have that. At the same time, Kamala Harris's campaign and Harris herself have shot back with a really simple rhetorical device, which is basically you're scared. She has been waging a much more forceful campaign against Trump in her campaign's infancy. You see Democratic proxies all over every cable news show that will have them calling the Republicans weird, literally their word, weird. And so this just sort of goes right into it, where Harris is basically saying, if you're trying to find all of these reasons not to debate me, maybe it's just because you're scared of not debating me.
So that rumbles on. On the Democratic side, though, we know one person who won't be Kamala Harris's running mate, and that's Roy Cooper, the North Carolina governor, because he's dropped out. Who are the other possibilities we should be watching?
Well, we're sort of looking at a trio that seems to have emerged a little bit. Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, now senator in Arizona, and Tim Walz, former school teacher and former enlisted military man, who is now the governor of Minnesota. Of those, you'd figure that Shapiro right now is leading in the betting markets as the most likely pick. Part of that is due to the fact that he is maybe the most popular politician in the most critical swing state of Pennsylvania. The person who's been rising the most recently is Walz. Walz is the person who kind of, I wouldn't say came up with, but certainly popularized the let's call them weird attack that Democrats are currently enjoying. And so it's a little bit of a, what sort of flavor do you want to go with? There's a lot of things that go into this. It's not just winning an election. You have to govern. And Harris, as a vice president, will have a very good idea of what she wants in that role.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, your morning brief on the stories making news from London to Wall Street and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed every morning on Apple, Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning on London DAB Radio, the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And I'm Stephen Carroll. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day, right here on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.